When you need to create a workbook that has multiple sheets in it, there are some tricks that will let you work with these workbooks more effectively. Let's consider the situation where we need a worksheet with data for each month of the year. I could create this in one of a few ways, and here's one of them. I already have the January data laid out and designed and ready to go, and now that I've got January sorted out, what I want to do is to create matching sheets for February, March, and so on. To do this, I can copy the January sheet. I can do this by right-clicking the sheet name and choose Move or Copy. I'm going to create a copy and I want to have this one at the end of this workbook, so I'll click OK. And it's added as January 2. All I need to do is to double-click on the sheet name and type February. And it can now be used for February's data. I would just make changes to the data. I can also copy the sheet by clicking on the sheet itself and control and drag away a duplicate sheet. This creates an identical sheet, and again I just need to double click the sheet name and type the appropriate month name. And I would go ahead and do this for all the months of the year. Now there's another way that I can do this, so let's switch to a different workbook. For this workbook, I've already got sheets that are named, so I have sheets for the entire year. I just don't have any data right now. And what I want to do is to start entering the data into these sheets. So I'm going to click on the first sheet and shift click on the last, so all of them are selected. And now if I start typing my data in this cell here, it will be added to every single sheet in the workbook. I'll just add a couple of pieces of data so that we can see, and then I'll click on one of the worksheets, and this one alone is selected. It's September's, and you can see it has the data in place, and so too does this one. This is the November one. Either of these processes will allow me to create a workbook that contains sheets for all the months of the year, and the benefit of either copying or creating all these sheets at the one time is that the data is going to be in the same place in each one of these sheets, so it's going to be easier to summarize later on. There are a couple of gotchas though to be aware of, and one of them is that the spell check feature in Excel is limited to the currently selected worksheet. But you can spell check all your worksheets at once if you click on one and then shift click on the very last or the very first in the series, and then go ahead and do your spell check. In this case, Excel will now spell check the entire workbook. A similar process is involved when you print the workbook and when saving it as a PDF file. By default, Excel prints only the current sheet, and if you save the workbook as a PDF, by default it saves only the current sheet as well. Again, you can get around this by making sure that you have all your sheets selected before you select File and then Print, or before you go to save the file as a PDF file. If you are printing this file, you may find it useful to add the sheet name to the top of each sheet that comes out of the printer. I'll click Insert and go to the text options and select Header and Footer. And into the header area, you can see I have the option of adding the sheet name. This will ensure that the sheet name, December, January, February, etc., will be printed at the very top of each of these sheets when they're printed.